So, we start off with Takuma Sakamoto. He's your classic anime NEET who stays in his room all day and plays games. His game of choice is an MMORPG called Cross Reverie, in which he plays his character called Diablo. And as every eventual Isekai protagonist, he is a self-proclaimed demon lord of the game, and he finds himself having to hold back on every fight in order to have some type of challenge. He mainly does this as he's so damn strong with all his equipment and skill that he's gathered from playing. However, one day he gets transported to another world, and to his surprise, he's taken on the form of his in-game character, Diablo. But that's not all. When he gets transported, there are two girls standing next to him, a Pantherian, aka your typical animal girl, called Rem Galliou, and a busty elf girl called Shera L. Greenwood. Their reason for being there? Rem and Shera wanted to summon a spirit that they would be able to control and use for battle. However, instead of being a small animal or something slightly stronger, Diablo was the one summoned. And as Diablo still doesn't know what's happening, the girls tried to bind Diablo to them and give him a collar, which is the standard procedure when you summon something and control it. But because Diablo has a ring that reverses all kinds of magic that he got during an event when playing the game, it backfires and puts the collars on the two girls. Now stuck wearing the enslavement collars, Rem, Shera, and Diablo go on adventures to try and find a way to stop the spell and solve the many issues that befall the party. Before I say what I liked and disliked about the story, I'll give it a 7 out of 10, and here's why. While I found the story enjoyable, by the end of the show it dropped for me. I won't exactly say why because of spoilers, but I'll say this. Something very important in the first season became null very quickly because of how it was presented. I'll be more specific at the end of the video when I talk about spoilers, but as for the good parts of the story, it's quite a funny show. It's not anything new, it's your classic Isekai where the main character is OP, but there are times where his abilities are actually challenged and put to the test. And while the humor is a bit vanilla with it focusing on erotic scenes, etc., it was enough to keep my attention where it needed to be. And no, I don't mean the erotic scenes. In terms of characters, I'll first give it a 7 out of 10. While the cast was enough to get everything across and the main cast had enough story behind them separately, there wasn't anything else that caught my attention. Rem is a flat-chested animal girl, Shera is a busty elf, and Diablo is an OP demon lord. When you take it like that, then they're not really anything special, but they were entertaining as a trio throughout the show. What they did do well is the variety of designs, even if they were a bit mild. By establishing different races in the world, they gave themselves a great opportunity to be open with how all the characters looked like, and I think that they did this well. However, there's two people in particular who I didn't like at all personality wise, or their designs, but I'll get to that at the end. Another good part of this show is the action, which I'll give an 8 out of 10. You could technically say that it's because it's an isekai, but there's no point in disregarding it just because it's a certain genre, so I'll give it some props. Some people might say that the action is a bit lacking, which I would somewhat agree with, but my issue there is with the animation and not the action. Anyways, because the main character is OP and a sorcerer, we get to watch some really cool scenes, especially when he uses his stronger attacks. Also, I just love it when the MC can just disregard attacks and or magic because it's too weak to hurt him, and you definitely get that here. Like I said before though, there are parts where Diablo struggles, which in my opinion is a great thing to have in an isekai, even if the MC is really strong. Because if they can survive anything, then it removes any kind of tension and gets rid of any potential for an interesting fight. There's a kind of balance that needs to be achieved, so the viewer can get more invested, as how are you supposed to get invested in someone who can't die? It just doesn't work. But yeah, to sum it up, there's good action in this show, so if you're into that, then this might be for you. From my recollection, the sound design is alright in this anime. For now, I'll give it an 8 out of 10, as not only is the opening music good, but also the sounds of the magic that gets used. It's really well placed, and it gives it some oomph when watching. I do wish there was a bit more focus on it, but for stereotypical isekai, it doesn't just throw away sound as an extra thing like some other shows do. I wish I could say more, but I'm really bad at describing sound design compared to other categories, so I'll leave it at that. The animation was solid. It wasn't super crazy and it wasn't overly dull either, so it gets an 8 out of 10. I feel like some of the bigger fights do suffer from not having a better animation, but it's not so bad where it's unwatchable. If I remember correctly, I very much enjoyed the battles because of the hype that was there and kept me invested throughout most of the show. Anyways, the overall score is 38 out of 50. I think it would be a disservice to the anime to call it a complete copy of your generic isekai, even though the elements are there. If anything, by using the humour and the action so much, it was able to keep up quite well. However, the second season was a lot worse in my opinion and I literally couldn't finish it. And while we're here, I'm going to talk about some of the spoilers, so if you don't want to hear this, then you have 5 seconds before I get into it. Still here? Cool. So my biggest issue with the show was the final battle, or rather the result of it. Rem has a demon inside of her that turns out to be the demon lord of that world, and when it gets defeated by Diablo, it turns into a little girl. I think the demon is a little girl even before that fight, however, this realization made me think that the entire menace of the whole first season wasn't a threat at all. Could she have destroyed the world? Yes, but when you think of a demon lord, you don't think of a little girl that'll be added to a harem now, do you? Anyways, that's about it. If you enjoyed the review, give us a like and maybe subscribe. If you're a returning viewer, then you'll realize that this video is a bit different to our other reviews. We're trying out a different structure for our videos, like rather than talking about the story at the beginning and then giving our ratings, I talked about each part of the anime and gave the rating for each section right after. But yeah, that's about it. I'll see you in the next review.